Hello there, this is Rudy Espinal welcoming you to This is Santo Domingo. Today a special broadcast from Minnesota, Minneapolis. I don't know where to begin, really. I mean, I've faced a lot of audiences, large and small. I've faced a very large audience, not presently a you-to-you conversation, which was my greatest audience, I would say, and it was estimated in about 60 million people in Latin America on a Miss Universe broadcast. And I never felt so afraid of a microphone as tonight. For many particular reasons. I've been taking surprises after surprises. The mere fact of having been invited to the ANARC convention was probably enough for my ego to be satisfied. And just having my name and my program mentioned in so many publications here in the States, which I got back in Santo Domingo, was more than enough. And I found that I had reached the highlight probably of my incidental, hobby-wise, sometimes professional-wise career as an announcer, as a radio announcer. Then I wondered, well, I'm invited as the guest speaker, and what will I be talking about? So Kim made it very, very easy for me. And he said, well, why don't you speak about Rudy Espinal? That's a person you know very well. I said, oh, yes, sure. That would be easy. So that would be the main trend of my conversation with you tonight. How I came into radio, what my feelings were, and where I headed, where I am, and where I am heading, which might be of interest to you, and I hope Kim was right. So I'll start by saying that I was born in 1942 in Curacao in the Netherlands Antilles from Dominican parents. My father was at the time the Consul General for the Dominican Republic in Curacao. And the doctor, after I was born, went back to my mother and said, you got a boy, and from hearing his voice, he should probably be a politician or a radio announcer. I like both things. I've only been involved in one, and I hope I'll stick to that one. Well, that was my unconscious first experience as an announcer. I yelled too much. Somebody heard my voice. Another anecdote that I might have gone through was once an inspector. Well, my father was the Consul General at the time of the Trujillo regime, who was a dictator in the Dominican Republic. And of course, government officials. So we had an inspector from the Foreign Office in Santo Domingo, and he was having dinner or lunch at my house, at my parents' house. And Rudy, with some 7 to 8 years, was just playing around cars and so on, and narrating whatever was going on in that show that I had with my little cars and so on. And suddenly Rudy stands up and says, and now Mr. Trujillo has been killed, and he has been put in the back of the car, and the killers have driven away with him. My father panicked. My mother almost fainted, and the inspector just opened his eyes and looked at me, and then looked at my father, and says, what's going on here? So very embarrassed, but then the inspector saw it was a kid's game, and definitely if anybody wanted to do any ill to my father at that time, he would. Just got back to Santo Domingo and report that the Consul General's son is talking about how Trujillo was killed and so on. and that could have been enough for my father to, well, something might have happened. That had three meanings, I would say. One, my prediction ability, because Trujillo was actually killed and put in the back of a car and driven away and hidden. So I foresaw that event probably at that age. And second, well, my ability to narrate something. That went through for several years, because from what I know from my parents, I got really a kick out of standing up in a chair and making speeches. And maybe that was the time where I didn't have my definition as a politician or as a radio announcer. I would stand up in a chair, and my vocabulary wasn't probably enough to deliver a big speech, and I would just start speaking about my father and my father's pajama, and the fork in the kitchen, and my mother, and my father's eyeglasses, and those kind of things. And I could go on, according to my parents, for minutes, half hours, or hours, just making speeches. And at times, my mother was or is a lover of classical music, and I would go for hours, that I still remember, in front of the record player, and stand there and direct all the beautiful operas that have been composed so far. I also developed some operatic abilities as a singer, acted in school shows, and at the age of 10, I believe, I was a very popular Mexican music singer, and star all by myself at the age of 10, which I enjoyed very, very much. At school, I got involved in the, well, just before getting into the youth broadcasting, which took place in Curacao and the Netherlands Antilles. I went to another experience that probably defined my career as an announcer. At one time, I was still going to school. My friend of mine and myself, where I was staying in Curacao after my parents left Curacao for Santo Domingo. I stayed there to finish my school. We sat down at the very old radio gramophone, which had these things to record records on paste, which had a microphone and everything, was just lying down there, and we started playing around with that radio gramophone and talking into it and pretend radio transmissions. First thing we know is that the neighbor comes in and says, "Oh, it's you making all that noise." We thought it was the noise we were making inside the house. It happened that the radio put out some kind of signal. Maybe the technical developed people would know what that could have been, and it was heard in the neighbor's house. So that was a challenge for us to continue our broadcast to our one listener, our neighbor. And we would hurry back from school and start up our programming and write down whatever we were going to do and say, and the records that we were going to play and so on. And before a week, we had an audience of about 10 people around the block, which was a tremendous audience at that time. Until that went out for about a month or so, until something went wrong. We had a short circuit, and boom, finished. The radio went off the air. Sounds like Radio Clarin. Well, that experience probably was a bug that got into my blood. Speaking to people, and then people reporting back to you what they heard on the radio. I got involved in the youth broadcast in Curacao in the Netherlands Antilles. That was an organization of all the schools. All the schools would gather once a week on Wednesdays to make up a program specially directed to the student audience. After working for 4 months in all aspects of programming that youth broadcast, I was appointed the director of that youth broadcast, and that went on for about a year and a half, which was the remaining years I was in Curacao. And there I had some beautiful experience too of what a radio station looked like, what programming is all about, what modulation was, what that little thing that went left and right when you talk to meant, and all those kind of things that you learn being in a radio station. And then getting feedback. I loved that, people commenting on the program and so on, and trying to improve the broadcasting of the youth broadcast. I also, before that, I had some experience in a radio station. My father ran a program for the Dominican people in Curacao, which was La Hora Dominicana, the Dominican Hour, where I was also involved once in a while, or as reading poems, or just playing a kid in a novel or something like that. So my involvement in radio came at a quite early age. From Curacao, my father was transferred to Beirut, Lebanon, as an ambassador, and from Curacao I went over to Beirut. I couldn't say I had any radio experience in Beirut. I went there to high school and then to college. And I got back in Santo Domingo in 1963. One advantage that I took of being in Beirut was polishing my French, in which I was very, very bad. At school, where we had 4 basic languages: Dutch, which was the main language, Papiamento, which was the language of, or is the language of, the Netherlands Antilles. Back at school, and English, French, Spanish, or German. So by the age of 15, I was able to speak pretty well some 4-5 languages. By the time I got to Beirut, I added one more language, which was Arabic. And before going into school, I had to wait for about 6 months. And I loved languages, so I studied some Russian and Italian. And when I got to school, I was looked up to like a kind of genius, talking 8 languages, was unheard of. So we left Beirut, came back to Santo Domingo, and the first thing I did was look around for a station where I could put up a program. So I went up to Radio Meal, which some of you have probably heard on shortwave, which was at the time the most popular, and still is the most popular AM station in the Dominican Republic. And started hanging around, helping out. I introduced for the first time recorded news, that is news with the voice of somebody being actually played back on the air on the most popular newscast in the Dominican Republic at Radio Meal, and that was a very nice first, which was copied by many other stations then, and is still being used. I've broadcasted, or I put up the first English broadcast in the Dominican Republic, which was on Sunday nights from 8 until 12 o'clock for delicious hours that I spent as I would put it as a disc jockey, actually, but on a very familiar mood, putting international songs. I introduced the European singers mainly. I happened to introduce them to the Dominican public, and that caught on. Most of the romantic singers of the time from the United States were played on that program, and it was kind of a romantic program, just to lullaby you to sleep on Sunday nights after a very active weekend. So Sleepwalk was the name of the program, caught on and came to be the first program in the Dominican Republic to attain a 90% radio audience rating. And that was just the beginning. So when I started my program, I just started just like what my style is up to now, very informal. Made many mistakes because when I got back I had lost most of my Spanish, so I made some heavy mistakes, as I usually do in English. I did in Spanish, wrong pronunciations and so on. And the people liked that. I mean, it was nice hearing a different voice, you know, and hearing people making mistakes after so many years of no mistakes on the air. And the director of the station came back to me after my first program and said, Rudy, I'm sorry, I should have heard you before you went on the air, but your style, you're out of style. I said, well, Mr. Maxwell, I just feel like it. I mean, that's my feeling. That's the way I feel at ease doing the program. He says, no. First of all, you have to start to educate your voice and talk from the bottom of your breast, you see. Whenever you get that heavy voice on the air, then that's when you're really getting true to the public. So I said, well, I don't think I can go very loud with that, and not for 4 hours, oh my God. So he says, okay, well, anyways, it's a dead time, Sunday night, so keep on with your program, and it's in English anyways, nobody will listen to it anyway, so, all right. So the program developed to a 90% audience rating, and that was nice. People liked that informal style, and I said, well, I'll stick to that. From Radio Mill, well, in 1965 we had some kind of revolution in the Dominican Republic, and of course English was taboo. There was an American intervention in the Dominican Republic, and everything that smelled English was, CIA, FBI, those kind of things. So I had to switch my program from English to Spanish. And it maintained the same rhythm, the same type of music, the same style, and it maintained its own public, to the extent that more programs came on Sunday nights with that same style of programming. From there I went to Radio Universal. I started a program. Well, in 1965, when I started in Spanish, the director came in and said, Rudy, from now on you'll be paid for your program. That means I worked for free for about 3 years for the station, and I really enjoyed it very much. When I went over to Radio Universal to make a program there, which was called Europa Musical, Musical Europe, where I specialized in putting European singers, the director of Radio Mill said he couldn't afford to have me as to share my time with another station. I had to be exclusive. He wouldn't like. He was not willing to pay exclusivity. So I said, well, I'll just walk away and go to Radio Universal. At that station, I carried out that program. I carried out another program early in the mornings, which was morning Dominican Universal morning. In the same style, this program, Musical Europe, and then I had the first English news broadcast in the Dominican Republic on radio. After that, I went into TV with an experience as a TV host for a program called A Block for the School. Went also with a newscast on television, on Radio Televisión Dominicana, that was a television sending. Had a program as a movie commentator. And from there I got involved with Columbia Pictures, was taken in as a trainee, and then turned into manager for Columbia Pictures in Santo Domingo. From there transferred to Caracas, where I cut my relations with radio. From Caracas to Brazil, where I lived for another 2 years. From Brazil to Holland, where I lived for another 2 years. and Italy. Then I came back in Santo Domingo by 1975, when I quit my last job and went on my own, which was a tremendous fiasco as a movie seller. So I got back into radio, and not directly to radio. In 1975, I was host to television cast of a local or an international beauty pageant called the Miss Amber pageant. Amber is the local stone, which you probably have heard in my program. And the pageant was Miss Amber pageant. From there, I was contracted to host the Miss Universe pageant for the Spanish-speaking audience. I was a TV host for the Oscars presentation for several years on Radio Televisión Dominicana, translator and host of the program. And in 1976, by mid-1976, I got, by the way, my association with those beauty pageants started my wife to have some jealousy in my wife. I was being identified as the gentleman of the nice girls, you know. I had one advantage above many people, that knowing so many languages, I could interview all of the girls, or practically all of the girls. And I happened to make a make-believe of speaking Japanese, which was the utmost. People said, he speaks even Japanese? That's impossible. But that was a make-up. I mean, I sat down with the girl from Japan and said, look, I'm just going to make believe that I speak Japanese. I'm going to tell you this and this and this and this, and what will you reply to me? So the translator said, well, she will reply this and this and this and this. I said, okay, beautiful. So I asked the question, and the girl answered, and I said, well, she just said that she was very happy to be in Santo Domingo. And that was a tremendous stunt. Well, contracted to present a programming schedule and record the presentations for the different programs that I had made up. So I started, that was my first contact with the World Radio TV Handbook, which I happen to have ever since in my hand, and find it the Bible of shortwave listening to a certain extent. From there I got my first contact with propagation and what the best frequencies were and what the best tuning in times were for the different parts of the world. And since we were aiming to the Dominican citizens living abroad, and especially the 400,000 Dominicans living in New York, I started studying all those things, so I made up the programming according to what I was able to find out from this book. So I went down and presented the programming, presented the presentation recordings and so on. They liked it. They contracted me as the director for the shortwave service. So that started. It started with the only This is Santo Domingo program that had a script was the first program. No other program ever had a script. From there on, I just came in at times 30 seconds just before the program, and at times even 30 seconds after the program had to start. The technician was very well trained, and by the time I should have been on the air, he would put on the presentation, which was recorded. Hello there, this is Rudy Espinal, and that would go on, and then after that he would shoot out with a musical piece. You know, I wasn't there. What could he do? So record playing there, and Rudy would come in. Good evening. Hi, how is everybody? So that happened quite sometimes. I had to do so many things at the time that I found time was really catching on me. I was directing the foreign service, or the shortwave service for Radio Clarin, and I had my own advertising agency, which I developed, and I'm still developing that. that part of my profession. So Radio Clarin went on the air whenever it was on the air, having transmitter problems, blackout problems, so we were on and off, and people started writing in, especially to the English broadcast. We had some good response, I would say, to the Spanish broadcast. Sorry, not as much as for the English. And well, I celebrated my 10th letter with a great party. It was an event. We got 10 letters from listeners abroad. Out of the 10, maybe 7 could have been from the United States. And we started developing that program. I got so much out of it. I enjoyed it very much. I think I enjoyed it more than you enjoyed listening to it, probably. And suddenly, after a couple of months of being or not being on the air, I started getting quite an amount of correspondence in. It came up to 60, went up to 100, went to 120, and we were getting very excited about it. Went over to 150 to 200, 260 letters, even got to 300 letters a week at one time. And definitely there was no way I could cope with replying to that correspondence. I should feel very ashamed of talking to you people, because I've been promising QSL cards and pennants all my life, all throughout the program, and I was very surprised to come down here and hear people say, "I received your QSL card." I said, "My God, somebody did." We had quite a fight for the QSL card and for the pennant. Nobody knows what shortwave listening is all about. I didn't have too much experience on it. With the time and with all the correspondence that I got and with the bulletins that I got more involved in shortwave listening, and I got more on the other side of the microphone, and felt what the people were feeling, and what the importance of a QSL card and the importance of a pennant. So I started fighting my way with management in Radio Clarin to have those things done, until I got it done probably 3 or 4 months just before I left. And luckily enough, some of those QSL cards went out. I never know if they ever made a pennant, ever. If they are, probably when I get back someday, I'll just start looking through the old files and sending pennants with 2 or 3 years delay, but they'll get there. They'll get there. No worry. They'll get there. So after some time, almost 2 years, after 1 year, I got also involved with the AM transmission. The director for the AM broadcasting resigned, and I took over his job. So I was directing the station. I couldn't afford spending more time out of the station, and I actually spent more than 16 hours down at Radio Clarin with the local broadcast, with the shortwave broadcast, and I enjoyed it very much. I was making less money though, but I enjoyed it. It came up to the point where politics got really involved in the whole thing, and this station was owned, or is owned, by a general of the Dominican Armed Forces. At that time, he was the chief of the police, and he was one of the strong men of the army. There were 2 strong men in the army. He was one of them, and he was very Balaguer inclined. So everything the station had to do was pro-Balaguer. Even so, I never got involved, and I never got any pressure from management to whatever I was doing on shortwave to be pro-Balaguer, and I really appreciated that, and that was the only condition I could have worked without any coaction. But the time came when elections came in. Balaguer lost the elections. The station wasn't paying taxes, it wasn't paying electricity. It had a lot of privileges, which it lost with the loss of the government. So the management sat down with me and said, well, what are we going to do? I said, well, as long as you can keep up the shortwave programming, I can find some financial aid, which I had already provided for. And as long as I can maintain my independence, I'll continue with the shortwave programming. And then they said, no, this radio station is of very much of importance to us and to the Balaguer people. And I don't think we'll be able to keep our independence. We'll have to be very much Balaguer inclined. So I said, well, I decline. And we worked out an arrangement so that I could withdraw from broadcasting from Radio Clarin, and they would do whatever they wanted to do. They kept on the shortwave programming for some time without my English program, and then suddenly quit. I don't know what the latest on it is. I think it's once in a while in the air for the general who's assigned in Washington to hear the local news and then signs off. That probably would be the only shortwave experience of Radio Clarin at this time. Radio Televisión Dominicana is paying quite some attention to shortwave, and their 9505 megahertz transmitter has been steadily on the air, so I heard. So while that was good news for me, because if they maintain the signal on the air, even if they switch or they don't switch, I might just get back there and record This is Santo Domingo in Caracas, and then ship it to Santo Domingo and have it aired once a week or something like that. And I would really enjoy that because I won't be losing contact with you people. In Caracas, under a suggestion of our good friend Glenn Hauser, we have made initial contact with Radio Nacional of Caracas, and I think I have 50-50 chance of getting into Radio Nacional with a local program. Still, I don't know what I would be doing, just getting the okay first and then go on the air after. Maybe 2 minutes after I start my first program, I decide what I'm going to do. I don't know. That would be very nice, because then I will be able to, well, reciprocate this feeling that I have been able to gather here. That's a real warm feeling of a real personal contact that I have had with you people in this 2 years of international broadcasting. The feedback that I've had in this convention is, for me, it's worth gold and diamonds and emeralds and everything put together, because it, again, it really waked up the bug that's running through my blood, to maintain myself, to keep myself on in shortwave, and keep that real nice, warm, personal contact with you people, and maybe attend a couple of other ANARC conventions. I would say that's the end of my announcer's career up to this moment. Looking forward to many years of broadcasting, and I hope of those many years that I'll be on shortwave. Before ending, I would like to thank those club members that choke in my throat is coming back. I don't know, just a feeling that I've been given too much of much more than I really deserve. I don't know how you could praise a guy who's doing what he likes. It's something really, like Ian was saying, he really enjoys what he's doing, and he's being paid for it. And I was paid for what I was doing, and now I'm being credited for it. I'm being mentioned in a university thesis of all things in the world. I never believed that start in 1976 on a station that was on and off in the air could go as far as tonight. I would like to thank all those club members that seconded the proposition of the Minnesota DX Club of giving me this fantastic, invaluable, incalculable value award, which I will keep on next to me, if I could wear it and put it on my jacket like that, I would do it because I'm one of the proudest men in the world right now. Thank you. Thank you, shortwave listeners, for the feedback that you have been giving me over the years and for that real warm feeling. Thank you.